We pride ourselves on being rational.
Hmm.
We're told that, successful people, they weigh the evidence, they use data, and they make these cool calculated choices.
Hmm.
We really like to think that when we're facing a big decision, like a career change or a relationship, we're operating from a place of just crystal clear logic.
And that right there is probably the biggest cognitive illusion that we hold.
Okay.
Because the research, it consistently suggests that most of the time, our choices are anything but rational. Your brain isn't a logic machine, it's a survival
It's a
machine.
survival machine.
And it's constantly filtering reality in ways that keep you comfortable, and that often comes at the expense of accuracy.
So my brain is lying to me.
In short, yes, your brain is actively lying to you to protect you.
And that is the core mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
If we aren't these rational decision makers and our brains are working against us in this subtle way, how do we identify the filters?
Yeah.
How do we train ourselves to see what the source material calls absolute reality? We're going to unpack the 3 major cognitive traps that prevent that clear thinking.
And to really set the foundation here, you have to accept one fundamental concept.
What's that?
Your perception is not reality. It is your version of reality.
Right.
Imagine the world is this vast, complex data stream. Your brain gets that stream and then immediately filters it through this highly customized lens.
A lens.
A lens built from your past experiences, your childhood lessons, your deepest fears, and really critically, your immediate desires.
So we're all just walking around with these dirty, customized contact lenses that we didn't even know we were wearing.
That's a great way to put it.
We're filtering reality through our traumas,
Mm-hmm.
our upbringing, even like the small slights we've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
But if the filter is based on everything in our past, how is it even possible to tell the difference between the filter and what's actually out there?
It's only possible through conscious effort, through skepticism. When we mistake that distortion for the truth, that's when we start mistaking emotion for logic. We start treating our personal beliefs, which might just be assumptions we picked up when we were 10 years old, as absolute facts. Clear judgment isn't about being smart. It's a learned ability to strip away the emotional story and just see the objective facts.
Okay, so if you need a quick diagnostic test, here's a little nugget from the research.
Yeah, this is a good one.
If all of your core beliefs, political, professional, social, if they all fit perfectly and neatly into one single prepackaged box or label,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very high probability that you are not thinking clearly. You're probably just following the masses or validating a group identity instead of doing the hard work of challenging yourself.
Exactly. You're not thinking independently.
Okay, let's jump into the first massive cognitive trap. This one is fundamental for survival, but it's disastrous for progress.
Right.
The brain is a prediction machine.
This is the root of almost all fear-based hesitation. The brain's main function, above everything else, is protection.
To keep us safe.
To keep you safe. And to do that, it needs to anticipate threats. The only data it has to predict the future is the past. So it's this constant prediction machine, taking every experience, especially the painful ones, and just projecting them forward. The brain is basically saying, if X hurt you then, X will probably hurt you now, so we have to avoid it.
And that creates that crucial connection, right? Pain that happened in the past will automatically create these deep-seated fears about the future, regardless of whether the current situation is actually dangerous or not.
It's a neural shortcut, a heuristic. It's built for speed, not for accuracy.
It's not stopping to think.
Exactly. It doesn't analyze context. It just sees surface similarities. Think about the self-sabotage cycle that paralyzes so many people. We came across a story about an entrepreneur who had 2 failed businesses in her 20s. They didn't bankrupt her, but they were emotionally and financially just taxing.
Wow, that must have been a heavy weight to carry when she was thinking about starting the third one.
It was. She said the protective mechanism was just deafening. The rational, conscious part of her mind, maybe 5% of it, knew the new business had a better model, stronger financing.
All the logic was there.
All the logic. But the vast, powerful 95% subconscious, the prediction machine, was screaming, "Danger! You lost 5 years and $80,000 before. This is an existential threat."
Wow.
If she had allowed that past pain to fully dictate her future, she would have never launched the third business, which has now been successful for 10 years.
That's the definition of being stuck, isn't it? It's not a lack of opportunity. It's this perception of guaranteed failure just based on old data.
And this mechanism, it impacts everything. It's why you might stay in a job you hate.
Okay, explain that.
The job is familiar, and while it gives you pain, like unhappiness, it also provides safety, a paycheck. A new, potentially better job is an unknown. And the prediction machine defaults to assuming that the unknown will result in some past negative outcome. It forces you to hold on to relationships, ideas, or identities that stopped serving you a long time ago.
And for so many people listening, this probably shows up most clearly in relationships.
Absolutely.
You consciously want a fulfilling partnership, but if your last one ended in betrayal, that prediction machine just goes on overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
So every potential new partner is scanned not for compatibility, but for these perceived similarities to the person who hurt you. You might blow up a minor issue into a huge red flag, rejecting someone based on a subconscious historical comparison.
What kept you safe in the past can absolutely keep you stuck in the present. The key realization is that to move forward, you have to interrupt that automatic prediction.
So how do we actually interrupt it? This brings us to the first big solution,
Yeah.
which requires us to stop being, I guess, philosophers and start being scientists.
Yes.
We have to adopt the scientific method to test the validity of our thoughts.
This is where we see the power of things like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Right.
CBT is essentially teaching people to apply the scientific method to their automatic negative thoughts. Instead of just blindly believing your emotion or your fear, which is often just a prediction, you treat it as a hypothesis that needs to be tested.
That is a powerful reframe. We have to stop taking our feelings as statements of fact.
Yes.
The problem is most people do the exact opposite. They fall victim to that, very well-known trap of confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. It just means you only look for information that confirms what you already believe. If you believe the world is rigged against you, you seek out articles and stories that prove it.
And if you think a new venture will fail,
You ignore all the signs of success and you actively scan for any potential pitfall. You're looking for the failure.
and the research highlights this, that this retreat into validation is one of the biggest drivers of polarization today.
Mm.
People aren't engaging with challenging ideas. They're just retreating to their extremes, where their existing beliefs get constantly reaffirmed.
A good scientist, though, doesn't try to confirm their hypothesis. They actively try to disprove it.
To break it.
They try to break it. And if the hypothesis withstands their best, most rigorous attempts at disproof, only then do they tentatively conclude it might be true. And that is the approach you have to take with your deepest fears and beliefs.
Okay, so let's make this actionable. Let's say my automatic negative thought is, I am terrible at public speaking, and I will humiliate myself in the next presentation. How do I apply the scientific method there?
Okay, first, you write that down. Hypothesis. I am terrible at public speaking and will humiliate myself. Then you have to define the experiment and how you'll collect data. What specifically would be humiliation? Sweating, forgetting a word, people leaving the room.
Okay, let's say the prediction is, I'll forget my key data points and the audience will be visibly bored.
Now, you design a low-stakes experiment. Maybe you first practice in front of one supportive friend, or you give a 5-minute presentation on an easy topic to a small internal team, and then you collect the data. Did you forget the key data points?
Maybe yes, once, but I recovered immediately.
Okay. Were people visibly bored?
Well, the data suggests 3 people were scrolling on their phones, but 5 people asked really detailed questions afterwards.
So the moment you collect that objective data, you realize that the catastrophic binary prediction, I will fail entirely, it doesn't match the messy, nuanced reality.
I made a mistake, but I didn't humiliate myself.
Exactly. You challenged the prediction and you found it wanting. The strategy here is to play devil's advocate with yourself relentlessly. Next time you are utterly convinced of a truth, step back and ask, what evidence specifically would actually prove me wrong?
That's the ultimate litmus test. If I can't articulate what would disprove my belief, then I'm not searching for truth. I'm searching for validation.
You're just trying to keep the prediction machine happy.
So if the first trap was about fear and projecting the past, the second one is based entirely on present desire and our attachment to specific outcomes. The sources highlight that desire is maybe the most insidious blind spot because it doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from a deep emotional attachment to how things should be.
Yes, desire distorts reality because it forces you to see things as you wish they were. It overrides all the objective data. It's like putting a strong magnetic field right next to your decision-making compass. You might know, mathematically, that 2 + 2 = 4, but if you desperately want it to equal 5, you'll find a way to manipulate the numbers until they agree with your emotional truth.
This shows up so clearly in high-stakes areas like finance and relationships.
Definitely.
We see it when someone pours their life savings into a stock, not because the fundamentals are sound, but because they desperately want that stock to be the big one. They mentally downplay every single warning sign.
Or the classic relationship scenario. You want the relationship to work so badly, maybe driven by a fear of being alone, that you rationalize enormous red flags.
You focus on their potential.
You focus on their potential, you dismiss cheating or emotional volatility, and you tell yourself things like, well, all good relationships are hard work, when the truth is your judgment is just clouded by your attachment to the outcome of not being alone.
But wait a second. Isn't ambition and strong motivation necessary for success? Where's the line between that healthy drive and a destructive attachment?
That's the critical nuance. Motivation focuses on the effort. I'm going to work hard and execute a smart plan. Attachment focuses on the specific outcome.
The results.
The result. I must achieve this exact result, and if I don't, I'm a failure. Motivation accepts failure as feedback. Attachment sees failure as a catastrophic threat to your identity.
So the powerful mental shift then is detachment. We need to mentally isolate ourselves from the outcome just for a moment, just long enough to see the facts clearly.
And the simplest way to practice this is what we call the friend test.
The friend test.
Imagine your friend, let's call him John, is in this exact situation. He's deciding whether to leave a toxic business partnership. His partner underperforms, but it's his only connection in the industry. What advice would you give John? You have zero personal stake.
Oh, I'd tell John to cut his losses, without hesitation. The emotional cost isn't worth it.
Precisely. The advice you'd give John is often the truth because your judgment isn't clouded by your personal desire. When you apply that detachment filter, you change the question you ask yourself.
So you stop asking.
Stop asking, how can I desperately force this to work? And start asking, should I even be working on this in the first place?
And maybe the deeper question. Instead of asking, what do I want to be true? Ask, what is demonstrably true, regardless of how I feel about it?
That shift in focus is immensely clarifying.
It really is.
So when you make a decision, try this exercise. Write down the decision you want to make, the one fueled by desire. Then write down the decision you'd make if you had zero attachment, if you were advising a stranger, if there's a big gap between those two.
Then you know your judgment is clouded.
You know it's clouded. You're trying to shoot an arrow at target while wearing glasses smeared with wishful thinking.
That leads us right to the final and maybe the most insidious trap, because it's tied directly to our self-concept. The identity trap.
The identity trap locks us into static thinking. We think, we act, we decide through the fixed lens of who we've defined ourselves to be. And the ego is the main antagonist here.
Ego.
It prioritizes self-consistency over self-correction. It would much rather be wrong and consistent than correct and uncertain. Change threatens the ego's whole definition of stability.
That preference for being consistently wrong just to maintain a self-image is incredibly powerful.
Okay.
But again, doesn't consistency also build necessary habits and trust? I mean, if I stop identifying as a punctual person, won't I just start showing up late?
Consistency in action is valuable. It's rigidity and self-definition that's the trap. The issue comes up when your identity becomes so fixed that it prevents necessary evolution. Take the person who defines themselves as the hard worker. Their self-worth is tied to struggle. They can't accept an easier, smarter, or more automated way of doing something because it threatens their identity as someone who must suffer to succeed.
So they might refuse to delegate or use new technology, not because it's inefficient,
No.
but because efficiency would require them to shed that label of the grind.
Exactly. Or consider the person whose identity is rooted in victimhood. If they define themselves as someone who has been unfairly targeted, they will unconsciously filter out all evidence of their own success or agency.
Right.
So if they achieve success, it contradicts their primary self-definition, so they often subconsciously sabotage the result to remain consistent with that identity.
We also see this in extreme political or professional identities.
Oh, absolutely.
If you identify so strongly with one group, admitting your group made an error, or that a fact contradicts your position, it feels like a deep personal betrayal. You defend the idea not because you believe it, but because admitting you're wrong means dismantling a part of who you think you are.
And then there are those who identify as the never quitter.
Oh, I know a few of those.
They hold on to dead-end projects or toxic relationships far too long. They equate quitting with failure rather than seeing it as a strategic redirection. Their commitment to persistence completely overshadows objective reality.
So the solution here is cultivating intellectual and personal fluidity.
Yes.
We have to be willing to shed identities when they aren't useful anymore, and just hold our beliefs loosely.
Think of your mind like a complex operating system. Reality is constantly changing. It's demanding updates, new information, new experiences. If you refuse to install those updates because you're emotionally attached to the old, comfortable operating system, well, your programs won't run well in the new environment.
You have to press the update button.
You have to be willing to press update on your beliefs, even if it causes some temporary instability. The faster you can admit a mistake, the faster you will grow, and the more agile you'll become.
This has been an incredibly clarifying deep dive into the flaws of human decision-making. We've explored the 3 ways our brain defaults to lying to us. The prediction machine projecting past pain, the distortion of desire making us see what we wish was true, and the identity trap, prioritizing consistency over correction.
And the key takeaway is really simple. Clear judgment and clear thinking are not a talent you're born with. They are a skill set, a deliberate practice that you have to train, just like learning a new language or an instrument.
Every day you have that choice.
You have the choice to see things as they are or to see them as your fears and desires dictate.
And as an actionable challenge for everyone listening, for the next week, we want you to try this. Pick one belief you hold really strongly, especially one tied to an identity, a professional title, a political stance, and try rigorously arguing against it.
Don't just think about it. Actually write down the strongest evidence that disproves your current truth.
And notice how that feels.
Yes, notice how it feels in your body. If arguing against your strong belief makes you deeply uncomfortable, if it feels like a fundamental betrayal, or if you find it's genuinely impossible to find evidence to disprove yourself,
You've found a trap.
you have likely found one of your identity traps. That discomfort is the sound of your ego fighting to remain consistent.
And finally, a provocative thought to leave you with.
The moment you stop filtering reality through fear and wishful thinking, you don't just make better decisions. You unlock a fundamentally different, richer world. Because by lifting that distorted perception, you finally allow yourself to pursue opportunities and see truths that were always there, but were previously just invisible to your conditioned mind.